Hey Barry, how you doing?
Very good, thank you.
First off, you're sporting the sweetest goatee I've seen in a while on film in this movie. You got the remnants here. Talk about the look of this character. Where'd that come from?
Well, it's informed by Rick, the director's time as a parole officer in prison when he was prepping the film Felon, the one that he did previous to this. And so he sent me 1,000 pictures and research on who these guys are and how deep into that life, that undercover life that they have to go. And so Cooper, has a military background but transferred into federal law and then went undercover with the Hells Angels. And so before we meet him, he's promoted into the position that we see him in the film. But it just becomes who he is after a while. The sleeves of tats and the goat, and it's his disguise, but it ultimately becomes a life that overtakes him.
That's a pretty good look. The overlying theme of the film is these unjust minimum drug sentences.
Yeah.
Kind of drives the plot. What's your view on that? It seems to me that there's so many people in prison for these minor drug offenses. Do you have a view for or against it?
Well, I think no matter what you think about the drug war or drugs in general, I think the facts are simple. This mandatory minimum sentencing laws were enacted to help the government go after high-level offenders. But unfortunately, what's happened is 90% of the nonviolent drug convictions are low-level offenders. First-time offenders, 18-year-old kids that are at the wrong place at the wrong time, that made the same mistakes that you and I did growing up, and now they're doing 5, 10 years with no chance of parole, just because it's a mandatory minimum, period. It takes the judicial discretion out of the hands of the judges and puts it squarely in the hands of the prosecutors, which are not impartial, much like a judge is. And so it has doubled our prison populations in the last, 20 years. We have over 2 million inmates, and Since this is a really interesting statistic. Since 1989, when these laws were first enacted, there was 5 private prisons in America. Now there's 100. These low-level crime convictions have gone up by 300, 400%. So much so that the prison industrial complex is the fastest growing industry in America.
It's ridiculous.
So there's something seriously out of whack there. And so it begs the question, why? Why would we still have this? And then you realize, at the very end, all of the big American corporate blue chip companies are in the prisons using that inmate labor. Most of the private prisons, which I mentioned there was 100 in America, pay their prisoners 50 cents an hour. So these are sweatshop wages. So all the jobs, that we would have paid the average American worker are now being done by prisoners with no benefit to the taxpayer. So it's a double loss. You're paying the $20,000 or $30,000 a year to give them room and board and health care, and the whole judicial and prison system is being paid for by you, but there's no benefit because they're being paid 50 cents an hour to work for Target and Walmart and Hewlett-Packard.
It's ridiculous. It's one of these things that's really unspoken, and I think the film really lends itself to this overarching issue, especially when what Dwayne has to do.
Mm-hmm.
My last question, I'm a big fan of Rick. What's it like working with him, coming from his background as a stunt director and so on?
Not only that, he was a parole officer in the prisons, and so he's worked with all these gangs and Hells Angels, and so he was immersed in that life for his film Felon. And he knows the military world as well. So he brought in, for me, just for my own research to immerse myself in this character, he brought in Delta Force guys, Rangers, SEALs, DEA agents. It was amazing, the source of information that I had to work with before, prepping for the film. So, not only the stunts and the action that Dwayne's audience is looking for, and they're gonna, he delivers on that, but, that's his wheelhouse. But for me, man, it was amazing to have these people to work with, to prepare for the character.